Today we're actually going to focus on probably one of the deepest concepts in the Course in Miracles, and that is forgiveness. Matter of fact, it's called A Course in Miracles. It's not a religion, so I want to always do a little review. It is a self-study. It is a psychological teaching of miracles. And miracles as defined in the Course of Miracles is a shift in perception. So you could actually call it a course of healing. You can even call it a course of forgiveness, because that's the way to shift and change your mind about the world that you see. And the Course in Miracles is not about changing the world, it's about changing your mind about the world. And that's really important. And some of you have attended right along for a few months anyway, as we've done these courses. But I'd like to start off with just asking you, how's it going? Do you have any questions or any thoughts you want to share? Or you can even share your experience to date with the Course in Miracles. But anybody have anything that they'd like to say? I'm told this mic should pick up your voice for the online audience, so we're thrilled about that.
I'm still, working on the other book to try to do it before, so I can try to understand. It's difficult.
Yeah.
It's way out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. It's ultimately metaphysical.
Yeah.
It's way out there.
And it brings these questions like, well, if you do, how does that work? He's working on, you forgive, and the whole book is, lessons that we're to get closer to forgiveness, because that's the only way to wake up and be a part of eternity. And it's just like, it makes me wonder where I'm at, and where I'm at in this cycle. And boy, how do you forgive every single little thing?
Yeah. Exactly. Well, we'll get into that a little bit with the workshop. And I think everyone who picks up the Course in Miracles and tries to read it, and I say try, is that it slows you down, because it isn't that Shakespearean, what is it, pentameter?
Mm-hmm.
You got to get the right word. Yeah.
But I believe the book you're reading is The Disappearance of the Universe.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, which is Gary Renard's Disappearance of the Universe, which gives, it's true to actually the Course teaching. And what its foundation is that this world that we live in is not real. Mm-hmm. It's an illusion. It's real to us in that here we are and we think we're seeing real people, but that is the foundation of the Course in Miracles. And so I'm going to review that a little bit.
That's about one more thing. And that's what I was saying. As Lisa and I, we're sisters, of course. We're like, well, if we're not really here,
And if my illusion is shared with her illusion, they overlap or something. Or is she not real?
I mean, why did I dream her?
I said the most important thing to life to me is this love that I share, especially with my family. And I'm thinking, does my family even exist?
Well, the course does a number on you that way, for sure. If you'd stopped at the only thing that's real is this love, you've got it.
Okay.
Okay. The way I like to think of it, because the way I like to think of it is that it's this game. It's this, kids are playing.
Like a video game.
Like a video game, but it's like, we're like avatars in that game, and there's multi ways into it, and we all have our own perspective into it. And we all ultimately are one. There is only one of us here. But it doesn't feel like that to us. It feels like I'm talking to you. It feels like that to me right now.
And it feels like you're talking to me. That's why I don't understand
So we all,
My illusion versus your illusion versus
the
everyone.
thing we can most influence is our own perspective.
Okay.
But we also influence everything else that's happening. Everything else out there, we have some part in. Because ultimately, there is just us here.
So that's the collective.
That's a collective. So there's the individual and there's a collective. And they're both
Okay.
there.
That helps, thank you.
So you got some handouts. So that's why we're going to go back to kind of review that what we started off with the Course in Miracles is think of 3 different worlds, all right? And that was from this particular one of God, Heaven, Bliss, and Knowing. That's where I'm starting on the left side of your handouts.
Do we have to start on God, heaven, bliss, and
Yes. That's actually from Michael Murdad's book, The Heart of A Course in Miracles. And Michael Murdad was our spiritual teaching at Unity of Sedona. That's now called the Global Center of Christ Consciousness. And so we've adapted some of his thoughts into this handout, and we wanted to give credit, and we have it there on the bottom. But that's a book that kind of sorts through the concepts of A Course in Miracles. But you think of it in 3 worlds, and that is you have God, you have heaven, bliss, which is exceeding joy, and knowing, which is the truth. Okay? You can also call it these 3 worlds of starting off with spirit. And the Course in Miracles says you had a mad idea. Okay? And that is that when you were created, God said, "Let there be light. It is good." And if I have said, if you look at my little thing, he would have said, "Holy mind of God, I am born good," the end. That's how God sees us. And the thing about that purity in the spirit is there's no duality at all. On this earth, we have duality. Okay? But this mad idea that, wonder what it'd be like to separate from God. It's not possible to separate from God. But because God created us, we are his co-creators. Everything of God is in us, within us. That's what the scripture actually calls the Holy Spirit, what the Course in Miracles calls the voice for God, and occasionally we'll call it the Holy Spirit. This is only the holy mind of God. But we had this idea we could separate an impossibility, but real to us in the ability to create. And so we literally fell asleep in this world of heaven, of spirit, in our purity. And we literally slipped down, and that's why you get a world that's in between than the world of the earth. And that world that's in between is what we call Eden. It is the Christ in you. In other words, it's you are, and Richard Rohr, if you've read any of his book, The Catholic Priest, he's very good at the universal Christ of actually in Christianity talking about, but we all have that Christ within us. But in that in-between world, which is the scripture, if you're going to read the Bible, would be the Garden of Eden. It's at that point that there's like a spiritual amnesia that happens to everyone. And it's at that point when you slip down, you're only sleeping though, in heaven. So you need to wake up. And think about all the major religions in the world. What do they talk about? Awakening, right? About awakening or about enlightenment. And what does that mean? That means an ascension back into the holy mind of God. So these 3 worlds, you got God, you have Eden, that in-between place, and then you have the earth, which is synonymous with hell. And if you live long enough on this earth, you go through hell at some point. And most people even go through usually 2 or 3 dark nights of the soul. Usually the first one comes, this is not the course, but this is Michael Murdad's teaching to Wendy and I was, he says usually the first one's around the age of 30. Okay? And we, you know, it happens. to all of us in a different way. You don't get the job you wanted, you thought it was exactly the person that you wanted to marry in relationship, and then all of a sudden you're saying, he or she's not the person I thought they were. Well, just there's a lot of death. That's what this world of the earth is about. It's loss, it's death, it's relationships that we think are going okay, and then they don't go okay. It's about wanting possessions. It's about wanting promotions or status. I mean, all those desires that people say, well, I'm going to make it the best life I can. Well, guess what? You can, but there will always be something. It will never be enough on this earth, because the earth is kind of the lower mind, if you want to think of these stages of consciousness of these three worlds. There is God, only one, only bliss, only knowing the truth. And then where we live, at best we can live on this earth, is in the heart. So you can think of, and we went over this last time, is if you think of the energy centers in your body as chakras, you can think of the first three chakras, the head and the neck. This is divine. This is our true self. But we fell asleep as soon as we thought we could separate from God. God did absolutely nothing, by the way, when you thought you could separate from him. He didn't condemn you. He didn't do anything except give you that spirit, which is already in you, to wake up and to help you and to guide you. But you're in control. So this is the divine true self, that we had a mad idea that we could separate from God, which you can't. And the Course in Miracles says you're on a journey without distance to a place you've never left. And you're only one. But when you fell asleep, that was really kind of the Big Bang. And everything separated. And that's why when we were talking about it's hard to get a sense of illusion, or how is this person a part of me? And well, what happens in this world is we really are only one. And so everything you see around you is just reflecting back to you yourself. That's the deep concept that Wendy's going to get into on forgiveness. But the foundation of that is here we are thinking we're different. Because why would you think that unless you fell asleep and you created your world? And we call that the ego. The ego, not the ego that's defined in psychology, but the ego of the I that wants to be only in control of everything. And we made that up too. The ego has absolutely no power over you. Nothing has power over you unless you give that power. Okay? So that's the in-between world. That's the heart chakra, by the way. And that's why we call it Christ. We call it Eden. Because in that place, in the garden, if you go back to Scripture, that was at the point where you made a decision on, I can either eat of the tree of good and evil. You see the duality there? Or I can go to the tree of life, which is representative of that first world of God, heaven, bliss, and knowing. There's no judgment, there's no resentment, there's no hate. God is only love. But in our consciousness, which happened in the garden, because you see, at that point you have to be in the disappearance of the universe. Gary Renard's very good at pointing out, you don't have consciousness really until you get to that garden, because you have to be conscious of something else. So this is when you hear people say, well, the world, the universe is nothing. And that really is physics. The wonderful thing is we live in a time, and you're going to see it if you're going to see more and more spiritual teachers that are not going to look like spiritual teachers. They're going to come out and they're going to talk about the universe doesn't exist. And they're going to talk about you being the avatar of this world. And they're going to talk about the nothingness that we came from. And yet you look at them, you think they're the farthest thing from a spiritual teacher. Because they were in probably some kind of religion, And now they've had some kind of religious drama, and that's what's going on. It's a religious drama syndrome, and they're like, wow. And that's my experience of being a part of the Christian, fundamental Christian world, was discovering that I wasn't accepted there because I chose to love a person that they didn't define was who I should love. It broke my heart. I gave everything I had into service, and to be told that at that point, you're not spiritual. It was the most heartbreaking thing for me, because it was like, oh, wait a minute. That's not the God I know. And most of the time when something like that happens, you'll find people just stay away from the church. And yet, here is A Course in Miracles teaching that leads you back to God, in my case. And in other cases, it's perhaps another way of unity. Like, we're not going to be judging you. We're going to just be talking the truth as we understand it. And that's a wonderful thing. So in this in-between world is the place where you choose. And that's really important. It's the heart that you choose. And what are you choosing? You're choosing that first world, heaven, or you're choosing the third world, hell, or this world. And that's what those three worlds mean. So I think Phyllis, do you have handouts? Okay, super.
Not today, I've had one from previously.
Yeah, we'll get you our handouts for today as well. Thank you, Wendy. Yeah. And so it's in this here world then that you can think of it, and I'm at the ego, the earth, the illusion, or your wrong mind. The ego, the thing about the ego is always trying to keep you from forgiveness or from love or for anything divine. Because the ego is, and this is the important thing, and you can think of it, and we didn't go over it too much last time, but you can think of it as your lower chakras, your three lower chakras, your fourth chakra or your heart chakra, three above the heart where we live after we've fallen. And now here we are. And the whole purpose of us here is to find our way back home, the return back into this divine mind, this holy mind. But the three chakras are, the first here is your solar plexus is thoughts, intellect. Because it's that part of you that's always wanting to be in control. If I'm the smartest one in the room, I'll be okay. If I read another book, I'll be okay. And it's the control factor that when you are realizing within you that this is about trying to control someone or controlling everyone else around me, which is a very difficult place to be. But that's often how it comes out. It's the inner control freak within us. And then the emotional chakra, the navel chakra, is only telling you, your emotions are only telling you what's going on in your heart. And it's either, in a simple way, it's fear, that third world, or it's love, the first world. It's either the holy mind of God, or it's just your lower mind. I call the heart the higher mind, if you want to think of it that way. So it's spirit, it's mind or heart or soul sometimes. I kind of avoid soul because it means different things to different people, but there it is. And then the third chakra is really about this body of ours that we have. And I mentioned it here before, I think in Unity, at one of the child talks, was you choose like you're making a bouquet of flowers, and you're choosing the flowers to put in that bouquet. You can make it beautiful if you're choosing love, and that flower's emitting a beautiful smell. Or you're choosing stinkweed, and that's your bouquet. Your bouquet is only based on your choices, and that's the chooser again, the heart. And then, of course, the root chakra is just your physical manifestations in this world. So it's everything physical that you would see. And of course, what the ego wants you to say is what's real to you is what you got your eyes on. And of course, the spiritual teaching is it's not what you see with your eyes, your physical eyes. It's believing without seeing. You've heard that. It's called faith. It's believing without seeing. Now, it doesn't mean that this real world, which is part of what is part of the heart chakra, which is the truth, is that what it's saying is when you see something, you really can never get the right perception of what that is. It's only from your own eyes. Recognize it. We do the best we can, but don't begin to think it's real. That's what the Course in Miracles is saying. Because the only true perception you can have is only with the eyes of God, if you will. Even though he has no eyes, he has no gender, he doesn't even have a voice. That's all part of our world. But to understand, we say, know the truth, but respect the illusion, so that we can live in this world. Okay. So then I wrote these three worlds, in case you didn't catch the differences there, is Holy Mind of God, I'm born good, the end. The heart, I choose to be holy or not, so you can choose what world you want to live in. And then the third world is basically, holy crap, this sucks, the end. So that's kind of it. And then in just a short review before Wendy comes up, I wanted to go over the soul level healing and forgiveness process that we presented last time. And truly, if you can get a sense of what world is talking to me, if you can step back from anything happening to you and realize, I can choose. I can choose to be resentful of this. I can choose to be hateful. I can choose to be angry. And all those are real. You never want to deny any of it. But you want to begin with recognize that there's an issue. So it's important, I think that's how this ties in, is you're recognizing what part of your mind or world are you talking about, holy, higher, or lower? And basically, if you can step back, you're in your heart. Because there are people, when things happen, they're just off. They're not even thinking about, could there any way be anything possible other than I'm not getting something I want, and I'm mad about it. The airplane didn't come on time, and I'm angry at you that your plane isn't here and leaving the time I wanted it to leave. I'm telling you, we do a lot of traveling in the world, and we've seen people go ballistic at people in line. I've seen people go ballistic in the grocery store. So they're not even beginning to even think about maybe there's a different way to look at this. Maybe there's a course in the shift perception. Oh, well, that might be called the Course in Miracles. They're not picking up the course. Okay, that's where they are. That's where they live. And everything's only about what I see, and that's it. And my world, and only my world, is the important world. Okay. So the first thing, though, is the fact that you begin to heal. And why do we want to heal? Because that's the only place that gets you to peace, love, joy, and abundance, which is the same as saying that first world. That's the bliss. That's the knowing the truth. That is only God. And it is, as you practice it, every day can get better and better and better. And what's wonderful is, and I appreciate last time, I think, Phyllis, when you mentioned, well, why would we, if we're in this bliss and in this world, why would we ever choose to leave that? Intellectually, there's not an answer to it. There really isn't. The only thing that is said by Jesus, because I looked it up, and that's in chapter 4 of the Course in Miracles, is why wonder what happened long ago when still choosing now? That was his response. So what he's really saying, if you're still choosing to be separate now, then why are you worried about something that happened in the past?
It's a moment by moment.
Right. And this is
We
why
have to re-choose.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, please go on. I didn't
We
mean
have to re-choose on a continual basis because we're living in this. We've chosen at some point to live in this illusion. That's the question I have, though, is living in the higher and wanting to flip it and ascend to where we really are. It's almost like a play back and forth. It's really hard to stay up here, whereas this is doable to me, but.
And actually, if you lived in the first world, you would have been ascended.
Oh, okay.
There's a
So I
certain,
wouldn't even be in this.
you wouldn't
world
even
at
be
all.
here.
Okay.
You would have ascended. And so everyone who's here, there's a certain amount of that ego. And I wouldn't think ever of the ego as an enemy, per se. That's not what the teaching really is. But don't ever think it's your friend.
Right.
Okay? And it has absolutely no power. And you made it up and created it. And you have to have a part of that ego in you to even hold this form. Because what would the ego do who wants to keep you separate from God is keep separating more and more people, right? Keep dividing more and more people. Because as there's more people who are different, then that you start to look at your differences instead of how you are similar. So you have to have a part of the ego to even be in this world. So that's why I say the best we do is really live in the heart chakra. But there is a full awareness, there is a world above that. And that's but tapping into that holy mind of God. And some people have it, but some only do it through edibles.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, sometimes that's where it is. And the thing with the soul healing that we walk through, and I want to get back to that, is you first recognize you have an issue. Say, whoa, this, and that's not that hard, but you still have to be a certain sense of awareness of, ooh, this really is not peace. So how do you know you're not in that first world is you don't feel peace. And the Course is pretty clear about that. And it says, if you don't feel peace, then you've chosen wrong. You're in your wrong mind. So it says, choose differently. And what you realize is the more that you're choosing a peaceful way of living, a peaceful way of looking at the world, then you'll recognize that more and more of the stuff that's in us, of making us feel shameful or guilty, comes out. And when it comes out and we become aware of it, we're always going back to the soul healing process again and again and again. And why do we have to have forgiveness at all? We don't need it from God. Please know that. God does not in any way judge us or anything. He did absolutely, when we had that mad idea that we could separate from him, he did nothing. And what Jesus teaches, as in the Course, is you should have laughed. What he's saying is, as soon as you had that thought that you could separate God, an impossibility, you should have laughed. And why is he saying it? It's because the ego has no control. But we didn't laugh. And we split. And now we have, almost 8 billion people. But they're all a part of us. And you got to stick with this. This is the deepest spiritual teaching I've ever come across in my life and practice every day. And the more I practice it, the more I recognize the truth of it. But once you recognize you have an issue, that issue is coming at the deepest sense, and that's step 2, is accept, where is this coming from? Where's it coming from? It's all in your beliefs. And where are your beliefs? They're in your heart. But what you have to do is decide, is this belief that I have true or not? So I recognize I have this issue. Oh, wow, I just really got angry there. Well, why did I get angry? I don't want to deny it, but I want to recognize it. But I want to be willing in the healing process to take it a little deeper. Very few people do this because it hurts. It hurts when you'd rather ignore the pains of the past or the wounds of the past. I mean, because it's not fun. But if you take it a little bit deeper and you realize, wow, you know, when I was a kid, I never felt like I fit in. I felt like I was the black sheep of the family, or I was the oddball. I mean, we don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but you have to accept there's something behind this anger, this resentment, that is making me feel guilty. And what am I feeling guilty of? Oh, I realize I really have a sense of being unlovable. Why? Well, maybe I was adopted, and that was the deepest wound that happened at that point, even though you have great, great love, you know, for the parents who have taken care of you, or you don't. Or maybe it's, I just don't feel worthy. You see, it gets down to beliefs. And once you accept there's something hidden behind that first reaction, then you can go to the third step, which is I can surrender it. I can release it. It's like having a cup full of whatever it is that's causing you not to be peaceful. And what do you have to do? You have to empty that cup. That's the surrendering process. But don't leave the cup unfilled. People make a mistake of that. They go, they talk to psychologists, they are in therapy forever, and they talk all about all their issues. They come out with some understanding about what it is, but do you notice it hasn't, they're still going 10, 20 years later. Why? Because they haven't filled the cup up with something to replace the old, all right? And that is the point where you refill it then, and where you emptying out the pain, emptying out the hard stuff, recognizing that it's not serving you well, and then you start to refill it. And it's at that point, what do you refill it with? That first world. You refill it with the mind, the divine mind of God. See? You've lost, all of us have lost our divine mind of God. And as a side note, when Jesus says to his apostles, I'm going to go and prepare a place for you. You've heard that maybe? And where he blesses his apostles before his crucifixion and then his resurrection. And he says, I'm going to go and prepare a place for you. What he's talking about is his divine mind. I am going to prepare this place for you that, and then he goes on, that you may join me. See, he was always teaching. If you really read his teaching, and not what the church has put out, but his true teachings, pick up a Bible that has red print, you know, with the actual words of Jesus. And again, they're the words that the writers remembered, okay, which is important. But if you actually just read those, you'll see that sometimes it's often very different interpretation than the spin that was put on for the Christian church when they decided what books can go in and not go in. If you begin to read some of the apocryphy books of the Bible, you know, the Gospel of Thomas, which is part of the disappearance of the universe, or the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, or there's Gospels of each. I mean, there's all kinds of other ones that were hidden that have come to light. And you start reading those, you'll see that it talks a lot more about this illusion. That's where you find a great deal of it. And the other thing, you find it often in Albert Einstein's writing. And you'll find it in any good, solid physicist person will say, the world is made up of nothing. So it's not just in religious teachings here. So once you refill it, you got to refill it then. You got to replace it. So you think, okay, what is my biggest issue right now? Self-acceptance. Okay, so I'm going to empty my cup where I feel disrespected, where I feel like I'm not accepted, and I'm going to fill it up then with worthiness, self-worth and love. or, man, I'm really sad. You know, a person I thought I was going to be with, or a parent that I've lost, a child I've lost. I mean, it's great grief. Don't ever, the Course in Miracles says, it would be cruel to go up to somebody once you have an understanding of the Course and tell them, well, you know, they're not really real, they're just an illusion. I mean, that's just cruel. That's not at all what the Course is trying to teach. The Course is just saying, just know the truth, respect the illusion, and fill that grief, though, and fill your cup with love, joy, peace, oneness, whatever it is that needs to speak to your heart. And then give thanks. Why do you give thanks? Because, thank goodness, I'm on my journey home. We left home, and our whole purpose here is to return home. And often I say you can learn it the easy way or the hard way. The easy way is to recognize you're in a process and God is always talking, the Holy Spirit, to you, if you're willing to listen. If you accept, hey, there's an issue going on, and you kind of step back, recognize what's behind this? What belief do I have? Think about it financially. How come I'm always having a hard time paying my bills? Oh, I grew up with money doesn't grow on trees. Or, we're poor, but we get by. You see, what are those beliefs? And sometimes, you're like, whoa, well, that's not true. And that's what this is about, is just learning the truth.
Grow up in scarcity, and it's a hook for you.
Exactly.
That you hang on every day.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so once you start recognizing those hooks on scarcity, then you start to, let's empty that cup and instead say, I have everything I need, and I am so grateful. And how you start your abundant living is you recognize everything you have in your life. You're thankful for the bed you sleep in. You're thankful for every bite of food you have. You're thankful that you can walk out in a park and look at beautiful birds and hear them sing, or the trees. And you're just so grateful. This isn't costing me anything, and it's all I want right now. I have everything I need. And there are people in our lifetime, like Peace Pilgrim, if you've ever read her book. She just walked out the door one day, and she said, she took no money from anyone, and had a shirt on that talked about I'm peace, and walked. And walked. Everything provided. Am I at the point in my spiritual life where I could do that? I don't think so. I don't think I could. I'm just being honest with where I'm at. And I'm going to close with one story, and then we're going to have Wendy come up and do the real meat of the workshop. And that is, I was just at my aunt's funeral, so I was home caring for my mom, and extended that for my dear Aunt Shirley's funeral. And so part of what I try to do when I go home, and I try to be there at least once a week, every month, and I take my mom to the doctor. My mom's in a wheelchair, needs great assistance, and it's tough for her. It's a hard experience in the sense of it makes her dizzy just to go to the doctor. But we went to the doctor, and we were successful at the doctor in the sense of nothing bad happened. And I'm on my way back. She can't get in my vehicle, so she's got a 2001 Buick. Old car, but she can get in it, and it works. I thank it every time I'm there. I will actually pet it and say, thank you, keep going. I really appreciate everything you're doing. You sound a little rattled, but I'm happy you're good. And to get her home, I was on a two-way highway. They had people, 55 mile an hour. And so it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and there were a lot of traffic on my right, but eventually I got to turn left to get in, so I had to be in the left-hand lane in order to get that left turn that was coming up about a mile down the road. And at first I had a truck behind me, and he was pretty close, and he wasn't very happy with me, but he was able to, swing around, because I'm going 64, all right? To me, speed limit is, what is it, and 9 miles more. That's my speed limit, okay? That's just how I drive, all right? So I'm going 64, and I have the cruise on, and, but I'm careful because there's not a whole lot of, there's cars in front of me. I was at a safe distance, and so, and then he swings around, and this car to my right slows down, so he kind of gets caught behind me. Well, then once he moved to the right lane, I had another truck behind me, and this guy, young, big, Illinois trucks, just like Indiana trucks, big trucks, and he is so mad. I'm just looking at my rear view, and he's pounding his wheel like this, So much anger comes out in traffic, it really is sad. And pounding like this, and I'm feeling pretty spiritual. I'm in a good place, right? And I'm just like, I'm waving at it. It's like, I can't move right and let you get around. And if I did, I'm going to turn in the left lane. So anyway, he's so angry at me. So eventually, I do turn in the right lane. He passes me, and I get the third finger, okay? And the best I could do at that point was just, in my mind, because Mom and I had stopped at Culver's because she wanted onion rings. So we were eating onion rings and a caramel shake, because that's what she gets after a doctor's appointment, And so I'm pretty relaxed. And the best I could do was say, may the universe rain down blessings on your dumbass. That was the best I could do. Could I just not even call and label them a name? Probably, but that's not where I was at. So every little bit, you realize, I thought I took care of that. Boy, it came up again. Does that happen to you? We're like, my, I didn't expect to get hooked. But sometimes things catch us off. It's not so much that we can plan, it's when it catches us off the moment. That's when we go, ooh, okay, let me step back here. Let me recognize, where am I at right now? And not judge ourselves. God's not judging us. We don't judge ourselves either. But recognize it, accept there's still some work there to do. Surrender the old, fill up with the new, and be so grateful and thankful. So you can see how that's a soul healing process in love and forgiveness. And now Wendy's going to come up, and she's going to talk more about forgiveness.
Thank you, Karen.
Welcome.
You sure those were the only words that went through your mind? I want to circle back to a concept that Karen brought up about responsibility, because I'm the responsible one. So one of the tenets of the Course, we are all one. There is only one of us here, and we individually and collectively are creating this experience. And so part of that is the concept of projection. So we all are constantly projecting out something. And it could be because the Holy Spirit in us is helping us bring up issues to heal. And you don't always welcome them and bless them as, oh great, another healing opportunity.
Yeah.
It doesn't always feel like that. But that isn't in fact what it is. And our only job here is to heal. To heal. And how do you heal? You forgive. And we'll get into that as well. But this concept of projection, so we're projecting something out. So, and we also are extending love out as well. And what we want to be is that point where we're only extending love, because that's all we have. That's all that's left. Because we've healed everything else. Yay! So I'm going to read a little short quote from the Course here. It's at the bottom of the second handout. This is the only thing that you need to do for vision, happiness, release from pain, and the complete escape from sin, all to be given you. Say only this, but mean it with no reservations, for here the power of salvation lies. I am responsible for what I see. I choose the feelings I experience, and I decide upon the goal I would achieve. And everything that seems to happen to me, I ask for and receive as I have asked. Deceive yourself no longer that you are helpless in the face of what is done to you. Acknowledge, but that you have been mistaken, and all effects of your mistakes will disappear. And that might not appear to be great news, but it actually is, because that means we really can change our lives. We really can change our experience of this world. So, forgiveness. There's different levels of it. First level, you don't forgive. I'm not going to forgive. That is unforgivable. Or you just acknowledge, I'm not ready to forgive that. That's okay. Just, eventually you will. The Holy Spirit will keep presenting you with opportunities until you find, okay, I guess I better do that. So the first level is you're not ready to forgive. The second and third levels are maybe not in order, maybe they shift around, but you forgive out of obligation. It's like, oh, yeah, okay, I'm supposed to forgive you, so I'm going to forgive you, or your family, so I'll let you get away with that, or whatever, and then we move on to forgiving out of pity or out of self-aggrandizement. So, well, they had a horrible upbringing, or that thing happened to them, so I guess it's okay that they dumped on me, or, but I am spiritual, and so I will overlook it, and I shall forgive it. And none of those are true forgiveness as the Course sees it. As the Course sees it, true forgiveness is you recognize the unreality of it, and that you're able to look through and see the light in that person instead of focusing on that thing that you think they did. And we had in today's service, we had some wonderful, wonderful songs. Ron talked about seeing the light in people, and it was a wonderful job, Phyllis and Melanie, everybody that participated, really bringing out, let's recognize the God within and without, and very, very moving. So, I'm going to read another quote from the Course. This one's also on your second worksheet. It's from Workbook Lesson 134. So the Course has a text and a workbook. The workbook has 365 lessons. And if you haven't started on them, I just encourage you to just start nibbling at them a little bit. And you can find them free online it's at the bottom of the page, acim.org, A Course in Miracles.org. And you can find the entire text there for free as well. So anytime you want to take a gander at it for free, there it is. So the title of the lesson is, Let Me Perceive Forgiveness as It Is. Let us review the meaning of forgive, for it is apt to be distorted and to be perceived as something that entails an unfair sacrifice of righteous wrath, a gift unjustified and undeserved, and a complete denial of the truth. In such a view, forgiveness must be seen as mere eccentric folly, and this course appear to rest salvation on a whim. And I will readily admit that early on in my experience with the Course, it appeared to me like that. It's like, really? That's, you just forgive everything? Well, that's just stupid. But hang in there with it. This twisted view of what forgiveness means is easily corrected when you accept the fact that pardon is not asked for what is true. It must be limited to what is false. It is irrelevant to everything except illusions. Truth is God's creation, and to pardon that is meaningless. All truth belongs to God, reflects God's laws, and radiates God's love. Does this need pardon? How can you forgive the sinless and eternally benign? So think of God, and sometimes it's easier to think of attributes of God. So attributes of God, throw a few at me here.
Love.
Love. Anything else? Do I hear anything else?
Joy,
Joy. Excellent.
forgiveness.
Forgive. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's true.
Because
That's true.
God
Yep,
doesn't
yep.
have to forgive because God sees no error in us. God sees us only as the aspect of God that we are. So
Abundance.
abundance. So when we think of it that way, would we go around trying to find a way to forgive love, trying to forgive joy, trying to forgive abundance? No, it doesn't make sense. And yet that's what we truly are. And that's why forgiveness of these things that appear to be happening and getting our mind from that wrong mind in the lower world to the right mind in the middle world is our goal. Get to the point where, yes.
I was wondering, creativity.
Creativity, absolutely.
Wow.
Creativity, absolutely. Absolutely is an attribute of God. Creativity, inspiration, yeah, absolutely. You bet. So we don't need to forgive creativity unless we're miscreating, even though it's not real. If we're miscreating, it's not real. Because it's not God. We don't need to forgive God. We need, in our mind, what we think, the things we think we need to forgive are simply not real. They don't exist. Only God exists. Only love, peace, joy, and abundance exist. And I know that sounds bizarre, because that's in this world, that's not how it all acts out. But those are our opportunities to figure out, okay, as Karen said, first step, recognize. And that's a big step. A lot of the world, and myself for many years, operated on autopilot. I have no choice. You did that. That made me mad. You know that if you do that, I will be mad. Therefore, it is your fault. So that's, but now it's like, oh, you did that. And I'm not, it's not like you don't see it, but it's like, oh, okay, you were in your wrong mind. What you were doing ultimately was not real. When you were in your right mind and extending love, peace, joy, abundance, creativity, those are real. Love is really God is the only real thing in this world. The rest of it is our nightmare that we made up, basically to punish ourselves for the belief that we separated from God.
I think I'm making a breakthrough because this part of the, when I awakened is not an all or nothing snap thing.
Right.
Like I started awakening when I went through my divorce. And then
It's wonderful you see it that way.
and I've been wandering around. I'm 62 now, almost 63. And I've been therapy and all these other things too. But at the same time, when you just said that, I've always kind of hung my hat on this idea that I was, that one of my sisters, not this one, was mean to me when I was a kid. That was my hook. Everything kind of went back to that. And my mom didn't do anything about it, and I suffered. now I'm realizing that it was a story I made up anyway. It's like it never really happened. So I can say, in all of these things, well, I'm not going to forgive her. I should forgive her. She's my sister after all. Or, well, I feel bad for her because she didn't realize what she was doing. And now I'm realizing I made it up anyway. It's all my story that my ego was using as a trap for me.
I think
So
that's
brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm like, oh
It's
my
all
gosh.
yours.
That
That's
was,
a brilliant,
but that,
wonderful.
it took me 20 years to get here, but, you know.
Oh, well,
Wow.
I
Like all this
just
time
looked
I
at the
thought-
cover and it happened.
Well, that's the thing, I'm supposed to be here, it's part of my story.
Well,
Let's say it took me 20 years to get here.
I just wanted to add that everyone in this room, you're not here by accident.
Right.
See, what you learn is there's no coincidences, there's no accidents. You are here for a purpose, you're waking up. And when you realize that, pat yourself on the back, truly, like, okay, I'm waking up. And also I wanted to point out that every level of forgiveness that we're talking about, remember, it is a good place to be.
Yeah.
So if you're not at that point, which few of us are, where something can happen and you look beyond it, it's not that you ignore it or deny it. The Course teaches the deepest level of forgiveness, which is not the forgiveness of this world. It is a level of forgiveness that says, I can look beyond, I recognize what you did, I'm not going to deny it, I'm not going to ignore it, but I can look beyond it and know you are in your right mind. Not at that moment. I think you're insane. And sometimes I'm insane. We all are to be here. We're not in our right minds. But you can look beyond that moment and situation to say, but I recognize you as God sees you, which is you're the light. This is not your real self. People acting out, it's not their real self. And what the Course teaches, though, is you wouldn't see it if it wasn't still a part of you. And that's a hard one, because you're like,
That's the
well, wait a
responsibility
minute,
part.
wait a minute. How am I responsible? Because there's only one of us, and we split up. So everything around us, you are a part of me, you are a part of me, you are a part of me, you are a part of me. And even the crazies out there, there's a little bit of crazy in us. That's what it's teaching us. But you just look at, if you become aware of it, the soul level healing. See, this is, and sometimes you're at it at different places. And like what Wendy was saying, sometimes it's only the best I can do is I'm just going to ignore it. Some people think that's forgiveness, and that's what Wendy was talking about, which is, okay, I'll be the holier person here, and I'll forgive your miserable butt. But you see, there's still a...
Just like you in the car, Karen.
Yeah, exactly. There's still a victim there, you see? And in the car, exactly. I felt disrespected. But I wasn't angry, and I wasn't resentful. I wasn't passive aggressive. So,
Asshole.
good job. You see? And I didn't think about it until actually, later, and I realized, oh, well, that's where I was. And in my defense, I had been with my mom for 10 days.
Well, if that's what you're going to project and create, then what do you expect?
Exactly.
Gee, I forgot where I was.
I'm sorry.
No. That was better than anything we said. That was
It
wonderful.
was an epiphany for me.
That's awesome.
In Gary Renard's book, he talks about, I think he's saying that our life is already prepared for us. And that was kind of disturbing for me to read, that it's already happened, sort of thing.
Well, it is and it isn't. There are different arts, and
Right.
we have the power of choice.
Okay.
And, I remember what I wanted to say that you reminded me of, is that Karen talked about, we talk about, well, there's only one of us here, and in the course, if you read it carefully, because I was looking for it, it talks about life. And so for me, it's not just people, it's animals, it's trees, it's anything living. And to me, many things are living. Every river has a spirit, every mountain has a spirit, every blade of grass has a spirit. So we're all in this, we're all participating. And what we, if there is turmoil, if there's disturbance in me, it's gonna play out. Maybe in another person. Maybe I'll project it onto Phyllis, or maybe something in me helped precipitate a tornado or a war or something like that. So anything that's happening out in the world, there is some little part of you that is part of that. And that by healing ourselves, we can bring it down. We can help heal ourselves, other people, nature, the world, everything. I mean, no pressure, but
And that's where the course is, again, where you don't change the world, you change your mind about the world. And as you're changing your thoughts to become more and more loving, this is what the world that you will see happens. This is the abundance part of it. Is once you start beginning to believe you're abundant with everything, not necessarily financially, but with relationships, with the ability to go out and be a part of and connecting with other people. As the more that you see it, the more that you recognize it, the more you'll see. If you ever wanted to buy a car and you had your mind on a certain car, and all of a sudden you decided that's the car you want, and then all of a sudden you start seeing it a lot more. Where before you never saw it, now you're seeing it. It's kind of that aspect of it. Is once you are extending it, and that's our job too, is we're returning us home. And one other thing is, and we don't go home alone. That's a concept in the Course in Miracles. Matter of fact, we all go home together. The best we can do is ascend, if you will, or awaken enough that we become an influence with all that surrounds us. And as everyone changes, because we've changed, then more and more of that transformation is going to happen as we take responsibility for what we see. Right.
well said. Well said.
Thank you.
Well said. So, while we're in this world and we're not like fully Christed yet, some ways to kind of help with the things that maybe need to be forgiven, that maybe are hard to forgive, is you can make it a practice to really see the light, really look at the light in other people. And that's, I think I shared in the first session, that was one of the first things I did when I was trying to get the Course, was just look at everyone with the intention of seeing that divine light in them. And a lot of times it's in the eyes. That's what worked for me. And that alone really improved my relationship with people, with our neighbors, it was kind of embarrassing, but it was a real game changer for me. So that's one little forgiveness hack that you can use.
Why was it embarrassing?
Well, because I needed to do it. And then, so that leads us into the second handout. It has another way to look at forgiveness here. So these are three really key things. If you're not quite ready to, when it's hard for you to find that forgiveness, that forgiveness of really getting that it didn't really happen, that you made the story up. It's such a great way to put it. So, like Karen said, recognize that it happened. I mean, we're not blind, it doesn't, if you think that what you're supposed to do is just continue to let someone abuse you, no, that's not what this is about at all. You're not a doormat. If in that situation, absolutely stand up and say, no, we're not going to do this anymore. However that plays out, for your own self, but also for them. Because if you keep enabling them to do that bad thing, it's making it harder for them to be able to turn around and pull back out. So it does both of you good if that's the appropriate thing to do. Absolutely do that. But refuse to hate. Refuse to hate. No matter what. No matter who you see on the TV screen. No matter what's going on. Refuse to hate. Just flat out make that a practice. Recognize what they're doing. But don't, you can disagree with it. But don't hate it. I mean, don't hate. Hate only hurts you. Hate is another chain you lay upon yourself. It does absolutely nothing. It actually feeds them, feeds the hateful part of them. So refuse to hate. Number 2, learn what you need to learn out of it. So do your soul level healing process. Look at it, recognize it. Ask yourself, does this feel familiar? Where does this come from? Track it back to your childhood if necessary, which usually it is necessary. A lot of this originates there. Actually, it all originated from that little moment when we decided to separate from God, from that original error. But that's not maybe particularly helpful when you're dealing with someone face to face. So learn what you need to learn. Do your healing, do your tracking. Realize, take responsibility. Realize that this has come up precisely for that, for you to do with it. And then see the light in others. Affirm the light in others. Say, yes, Karen did this horrible thing, but I know when she did it, she was not in her right mind. She was in her wrong mind. Therefore, it's not really real. It didn't really happen. God could not harm me that way. It didn't happen. But don't do it again.
Wendy,
Yes.
when you make a statement like that, when you say somebody is in their right mind or they're in their wrong mind, isn't that judging?
Oh, that's a good
You don't
question.
know their backstory, you don't know why they're making those making those decisions themselves. But if you label what they are doing right or wrong, aren't you judging them? And isn't that what we're not supposed to do?
Well, it's an important, only love is real. Only love is truth. And we have to recognize the truth. And we do. We do recognize when we're seeing love and we're seeing something other than love. So yes, there is an element of discernment there. But it is, you will do it whether you try to do it or not. Because the love in you will recognize the love in someone else or the absence of love, the cry for help in somebody else.
But you are making assumptions about why that person did that.
I'm not.
Oh,
I'm
you're
not.
not.
I'm
Okay.
seeing love or I'm seeing absence of love.
Okay.
I'm making no assumption, hopefully.
Mhm.
If I'm totally in my right mind, I'm making no assumptions about why they're doing it or how they're doing it, whatever. I'm either seeing someone in their right mind, which is someone radiating love, peace, joy, abundance, creativity, you know, in a joyous way, or not.
Right.
Can you address a little bit of tough love? I mean, I had 6 kids and I taught middle school. It's all not all, you know, peaches and cream. There are times that you have to do things that you really don't want to do because that would be in the big picture, the loving thing to do to try and help someone learn something.
I think you just said it in a nutshell there very well. You were doing the loving thing even though it might not have appeared to that person at that time, but you were doing the loving thing. You were not allowing them to continue the bad behavior because that would have been bad for them and for you, for everyone.
But it's still a judgment as to what's good and what's bad.
Exactly, right. The reality is.
I'm in the middle of a situation right now, so I'm trying to.
Yeah,
address
and the
all
reality is our everyday life here on earth is we are making judgments. I mean, if we're honest, we're making judgments as soon as we wake up. We're deciding what we're going to wear, we're judging this, you know.
Well, we're deciding.
We're deciding, right. But, I mean, it's a fine line to what is loving and what is not. That's the point, I think, where you're
Right.
deciding.
Right.
But if you just get it on judging, you know, I don't think that looks particularly good on someone, but, and if you ask me, I might have enough wisdom to say it looks great. You know, I mean, but there's judgments that you're making as you're going along. That is, you have to function in this world. And the difference, though, I think, in being in your right mind is that you can't do it if you haven't asked Spirit to help.
Okay.
That's the difference.
What would love do here? And sometimes it is. No, I'm going to grab your hand before you touch the hot stove.
Exactly.
Sometimes that is exactly what love looks like.
Exactly. Right. And you could call that tough love, but that is what I'm going to do in my right mind is I'm not even really sure what to do about this, but I'm willing and open for Spirit to direct me. And what's amazing about that is the more that you do it, you might actually be surprised at what can come out of your mouth. And it may not sound loving to someone else, but if you know that it was Spirit directed and what is the best right thing I can do in this situation that does the most good for the most people, you're on track. You know, for me, I have a nephew that's a drug addict. Now, if he's coming asking me for money, and I'm giving him money because he doesn't have food to eat, because he spent his paychecks on drugs, what's the most loving thing for me to do? And this is where I don't believe you're a drug addict. I think you're the light of God. And as the light of God, I'm going to treat you as if you're whole and complete and the light of God and the love of God, and I'm not going to do anything to support the addict part of you, because you're not an addict. You get it? The difference?
Did you give him money?
Of course not. No. No.
So how's he gonna eat?
Well, that's part of what they have to figure out. You see? And that's sometimes when you're saying to someone, you're 40 years old, I think it's about time you get out and get your own place. And if you're in those kinds of situations, you have to also ask yourself, why is it you're allowing that to happen? And if it's in fact, it's their own space and we're good with it, I know it's right. But if you think it's because, and I just came from my younger sister, 40-year-old son, lives with him. Her husband's quite a bit older than she is. He's got some real health challenges. And she actually just said that she probably has no idea, and it wasn't my place to point it out, but she said to me, but I may need him in my future. You see what's going on? That kid has no chance of ever leaving that house. You see? Is it a loving thing to have them there? Yeah. I have another sister, same situation, 40-year-old, living with her. You know, I don't know what that is.
It appears like love.
Exactly, it appears like love. But that's where you ask this with direction from Spirit. And the answer will come. It might not come right at that moment, but the answer comes. That's the promise. You ask and it is given. And test it out. What's the right thing to do right here? And it's not like you have to plan out how it's going to work out. We don't know. That's there's no time and space in heaven. So when the disappearance of the universe is talking about past and present lives, it's you're asleep. All of it's happening at once. It's just we don't understand it because we're in a linear time frame. We think this happened in the past, this is happening now, this is going to be in the future. There's none of that. So part of what this experience is, you could be living all your lives at once, is what he's saying. Is in the dream, that's what's happening, but not to us here, because that's not how we operate here. And so he was being shown his past self, his future self, before an awakening of where he recognized there's no yesterday, and there's no tomorrow. There's only the now in here. And that's a concept that, I wouldn't spin my wheels on that. I'd spin my wheels a little bit more and more on, am I doing the most loving thing right now in my life?
And just to piggyback on that, the Course makes it very clear that you want to turn to the Holy Spirit to help guide you, because the Holy Spirit knows what the greatest good for everyone will be in this situation, and we really don't. We just really don't. Any more questions before we head into meditation? And you'll have an opportunity afterwards too. Okay, this is from Workbook Lesson 121. Okay, let's take a few cleansing breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth with a sigh. Let's roll our shoulders and just stretch out a little bit. Allow the chair to accept your weight. And with every inhale, on the exhale, let yourself relax just a little bit more. And on the next inhale, let's bring in an attribute of God. Let's bring in peace. So let's inhale peace into our heart centers and exhale peace throughout our body. So inhale peace, exhale peace. Feel that peace filling your body. Feel it going out to the edges of your toes and your fingers and your head. Feel it overflowing you and surrounding you. Feel that warm blanket of peace all around you. Feel peace in every part of your body. Every organ, every muscle, every bone, every atom of your body filled with the peace of God. Peace, peace, peace. around this lovely sea of peace, think of someone that you do not like, who seems to irritate you or to cause regret in you if you should meet them. One you actively despise or merely try to overlook. It does not matter what form your anger takes. You probably have chosen them already. They will do. See them in your mind and look at them a while. Try to perceive some light in them somewhere, a little gleam, perhaps, which you had never noticed. Try to find some little spark of brightness shining through the ugly picture that you hold of them. Look at this picture till you see a light somewhere within it, and then try to let this light extend and extend and extend until it covers them completely, making the picture of them beautiful and good. Look at this changed perception for a while. And now turn your mind to one you call a friend. Try to transfer the light you learned to see around your former enemy to your friend. Perceive your friend now as more than friend to you. For in that light, their holiness shows you your Savior, saved and saving, healed and whole. Now let them offer you the light you see in them. And let your enemy and friend unite in blessing you with what you gave. Now are you one with them, and they with you. Now have you been forgiven by yourself. Do not forget throughout the day the role forgiveness plays in bringing happiness to every unforgiving mind, with yours among them. Tell yourself, forgiveness is the key to happiness. I will awaken from the dream that I am mortal, fallible, and full of sin, and know that I am the perfect child of God. Know that you are the perfect, perfect, beloved child of God. And just bask in that for a moment. And now let's slowly come back. Stretch out a little bit, stretch that awareness into our bodies, into every cell of our bodies. And we are the perfect child of God. And when you're ready, open your eyes and return to this awareness. Namaste.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you. Thank you again for being here. What a delight. I mean, we could talk about this all day. We won't, but you know, it's just, it's so powerful. And I just want to thank Phyllis. I thought the music Sunday here at Unity was just absolutely
Thank you,
gorgeous
yes.
and
Thank
beautiful.
you.
And the song's so well chosen, and your comments are just right on. And I appreciate that. Now, we, I think tentatively said that June 25th would be our next workshop, but I wanted to ask you, Phyllis, I noticed there's a choir, or is it a guest choir coming at 2 o'clock?
Threshold Choir, right, it's a song back. There's only like 8 people involved.
Okay, so we can have the workshop on?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
That's not a problem.
so make a note, June 25th, you guys aren't going to be here.
My daughter's coming into town, we're having a celebration.
Oh, well,
Alicia's
enjoy
gonna
it.
be a grandmother.
Oh,
Ah,
baby girl. in
Well,
November.
congratulations.
First.
I'm excited.
But I think we'll move forward on that, on the 25th. Yeah, I know I'm the speaker here, I think, at Unity too, for their morning service as well. But what we're going to cover is holy and special relationships. So that's a concept in the course that we haven't touched about what kind of relationship do you have? Is it a holy relationship or a special relationship? And go through that as well. So we'll
Will
be
we be
doing
able
that.
to catch that online?
Yes, it will be online, and so we know a number of people even has shared with us that they do watch us online, so.
I mean, after, like as a recording?
I think so, yeah, I think you
On
can
the
tap.
YouTube channel,
Okay,
on the YouTube channel.
great.
Yeah, right. And just one last comment, and I realized it during the meditation, that what helped me, Phyllis, particularly with the, what about judgment? Because I had the same question you did. It's like, well, I am judging, you know, and you're supposed to use the best you have, too. There's nothing wrong. Matter of fact, what you want to do is you want to convert those 3 lower chakras, your thoughts, your feelings, your physical manifest, all of that, you want to convert those to be working for you in your higher self and in your holy mind, your divine mind. But what was helpful for me was, it's not so much about judging, but it's about condemnation. I'm not going to
There's a big
condemn.
difference, yeah.
That's the difference. I judge because that's, you know, if you look at it that way, but it's, I'm not condemning. And that is that I'm not putting on you a label of anything but being the light of God.
Well, that's what bothered me about the
Right.
right and wrong. It's like, you know, I look at it and to me, it's right and wrong, but it may be, you know,
Exactly.
what I see as wrong in somebody else, may be the absolute right thing. They need to learn what they need to do right then.
Right,
on their
exactly.
pathway.
Exactly.
So who am I to say?
Right, right. And you can. We all have our own paths. What we do know is if we follow the Course in Miracles and all the love and forgiveness, what we do know is we're guaranteed a better tomorrow than if we didn't do it. So we hope that you will join us on the 25th if you can, and if you can't, then party like there's no tomorrow then. And thank you again so much.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
namaste. Oh, and, there are, I know we brought apples. Please take an apple with you. We're not taking those, we don't want to take those apples home with us.
I've got one.
They won't let them in the doorway.
And, yeah, and thank you very much.